everyone, and welcome to the Young and the Restless official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Young and the Restless reveals Audra Charles is at it again, making a terrible choice that's going to blow up in her face, and this time it could blow up her entire life. And of course, it's all about Kyle Abbott, who for Audra seems to be the one who got away. We're going to talk about how she's going after Kyle again because she can't back down from a challenge, and it could cost Audra absolutely everything. So recently, we saw Holden Novak trying to get Audra to agree to seduce Kyle. That's because Holden doesn't want Kyle to reconcile with Claire Grace Newman, and that's because Holden wants Claire for himself. Holden's absolutely smitten and isn't going to give up on Claire for even a moment. But it isn't Kyle who's coming between Claire and Holden. We know that Claire still has feelings for Kyle and probably still loves him, and she tapped the brakes with Holden because he wouldn't tell her the whole truth about him, Audra, and that gallery owner in LA. But to be fair, it's really not Claire's business. She just wanted to destroy Audra out of spite. What's wild to me is that Claire's mad at Audra for her scheme to seduce Kyle that Victor Newman was paying Audra to do. But Claire's not mad at Victor, whose idea it was, and paid Audra to do it. Claire only seems to have issues with non-Newmans being dishonest. Since Holden wouldn't spill tea on Audra, we saw Claire broke things off with Holden. I'm sure her feelings for Kyle played a role, but I think Claire's just salty because she didn't get the dirt to destroy Audra. Then Kyle encouraged Claire to let her vendetta against Audra go. And Claire finally said she would let the thing with Audra go, because Claire felt like she was becoming her crazy aunt Jordan Howard by being so bent on revenge. That was a good call on Claire's part, and it's probably a good thing she dropped her revenge plot on Audra. If not for Holden interfering and pushing Audra to go after Claire again, this whole feud could have just died. But I think pretty soon Claire's going to resume her vendetta because Audra is going to once again target Kyle for seduction. But this time it's with Holden pushing Audra to do it instead of Victor. Official Y&R spoilers say the truth about what Holden and Audra did will come out soon. And the spoiler said the fallout for Holden and Audra is going to be huge. And I think those two bring it on themselves. So when Holden first suggested to Audra that they end Claire and Kyle's connection for good, she wanted no part of it. Audra said she didn't want to set Claire off after she nearly choked her out a few months back. Audra also claimed she wanted nothing to do with Kyle because he's a walking ego, and Audra said Kyle makes her skin crawl. But Holden said now that Audra has a great job, he thinks she needs a new mission, and Holden suggested Audra should get revenge on Kyle. And to be fair, Audra pushed back on Holden because she doesn't want to risk her new partnership with Sally Spectra, especially not for Kyle. Holden didn't let up and kept pushing Audra, saying he knows she can make Kyle come crawling back and that would make her the winner. Holden also said Audra would be untouchable with an Abbott by her side if she decided to keep Kyle. Audra was confident that she could make Kyle beg to be with her, but Audra claimed to have neither the time or interest. But then Kyle came into society and glared at Audra, and Holden told Audra that she and Kyle belonged together, and then Holden asked Audra to help them get what they both want, which is Holden to get Claire and Audra to get Kyle. At that point, Holden had finally convinced Audra and she was on board to go after Kyle and seduce him to be her guy. But honestly, this is really not a smart move on Audra's part. You'd think she would have learned after the last time she schemed with Victor to seduce Kyle on Young and the Restless, because that blew up in Audra's face and she lost Nate Hastings. You would really think Audra would have learned her lesson after that. But apparently not. Claire decided to drop her revenge plot on Audra. But then, Holden got all jealous about Kyle and got Audra all worked up, making it a challenge. So, when Audra goes after Kyle, of course, that'll send Claire into a rage, and then she'll start digging again. And then I'm sure she'll find out about the dead odd guy and what Audra and Holden did. Plus, Sienna Bacall is in town now, and since Holden accidentally killed the guy at the Shadow Room, Sienna may have some info she's been holding back that she could give to Claire, especially since Sienna's now in tight with the Newmans. So Holden may have just shot himself in the foot because everything he wanted to stay hidden is gonna come out. As I mentioned before, official YNR spoilers say Audra and Holden's secret is exposed and the fallout's massive. This is all so needless since things are finally going great for Audra, and Holden pushed her buttons and basically convinced Audra to self-sabotage. I think seducing Kyle as a power play could wind up costing Audra her fancy new job, since Jill Abbott is the financial backer. And Sally might take a step back from Audra for her doing this awful scheme. Plus, when Claire exposes the truth, Audra and Holden could both land in legal trouble or be run out of town. And if there's possible criminal charges, Sally would have no choice but to fire her bestie. Remember when Audra said that she didn't want Holden back in her life because he's an extreme risk taker? We've not seen that side of him, but we're about to, and I think Audra letting Holden get close again is going to wreck her life. In the ever-turbulent world of the young and the restless, trouble has a way of circling back to the same people, and this time the storm is gathering once again around Audra Charles. Just when it seemed like she might finally be moving forward, Audra finds herself standing at the edge of another disastrous decision, one that could explode not only in her face, but in every corner of her life. And as fate would have it, the center of this dangerous spiral is none other than Kyle Abbott, the man who has long lingered in Audra's past, like a challenge she never quite finished. For Audra, Kyle represents something unresolved, something unfinished, and perhaps even something personal. The temptation to win that unfinished battle may soon prove impossible for her to resist. Yet in Genoa City, every move carries consequences, and this one threatens to ignite a chain reaction no one will be able to contain. The trouble truly begins with the calculating influence of Holden Novak, who recently approached Audra with a shocking proposal, one that would pull her straight back into the kind of manipulation she claimed to be leaving behind. Holden urged Audra to seduce Kyle not for romance, not for passion, but for strategy. His goal was simple and ruthlessly self-serving. He wanted to prevent Kyle from reconciling with Claire Grace Newman. Holden's interest in Claire had grown into something fierce and obsessive, and he wasn't willing to step aside for anyone, least of all Kyle. In Holden's mind, if Kyle could be distracted, if he could be pulled back into Audra's orbit, then Claire might finally be free for Holden to claim. But the truth behind Claire's heart complicates everything because despite her attempts to move forward, the emotions she still carries for Kyle refuse to fade. And while Holden believes Kyle is the obstacle standing between him and Claire, the reality is far more tangled and far more painful. Claire herself has been wrestling with emotions she can barely admit, even to herself. Deep down, it's clear that her feelings for Kyle have never truly disappeared, and perhaps they never will. When Holden refused to reveal the full truth about his past, particularly the secrets involving himself, Audra, and a mysterious gallery owner in Los Angeles, it created a crack in the fragile trust Claire had tried to build with him. That silence ultimately became too much for Claire to ignore. Even though the hidden details weren't truly her business, Claire's curiosity carried a deeper motivation. She wanted ammunition against Audra. The resentment she carried toward Audra had grown into something sharp and personal, and the chance to expose her rival had become a tempting opportunity. Yet what makes the situation even stranger is the selective nature of Claire's anger, because while she despised Audra for a scheme involving Kyle, she seemed far less outraged by the man who orchestrated the entire plan. That man, of course, was the powerful and calculating Victor Newman. It had been Victor who originally hired Audra and paid her to seduce Kyle in the first place, setting the entire scandal into motion. Yet Claire's fury seemed to focus almost entirely on Audra, while Victor's role in the manipulation escaped the same level of judgment. In a city dominated by the Newman name, it almost seemed as if Claire reserved her harshest criticism only for those outside the family circle. And when Holden refused to betray Audra's secrets and spill the details Claire wanted to hear, Claire ultimately walked away from him entirely. The breakup carried layers of emotion, disappointment, suspicion, and perhaps lingering love for Kyle. But there was also another quieter frustration simmering beneath the surface. Claire had lost her chance to uncover the dirt she believed could finally destroy Audra. In the aftermath of that fallout, Kyle stepped in with unexpected calm, urging Claire to let go of her growing obsession with revenge. He gently suggested that holding on to her anger toward Audra was only poisoning her own peace of mind. Claire listened, and for a rare moment of clarity, she recognized the truth in his words. The vengeance consuming her had begun to resemble the same darkness that once defined her infamous relative, Jordan Howard. The realization unsettled Claire deeply, forcing her to confront the path she had been walking. With visible reluctance but sincere determination, she finally decided to let her vendetta against Audra go. It was a moment of maturity and restraint, one that could have ended the entire feud if circumstances had allowed it to fade naturally. For a brief moment, peace seemed possible. Had the story ended there, the long-simmering hostility between Claire and Audra might have quietly disappeared into the background of Genoa City's endless drama. But Holden's jealousy and ambition refused to let that happen. Unable to accept Kyle's continued presence in Claire's life, Holden began pushing Audra again, pressing the idea that she should reignite the battle. The more he spoke, the more he framed it as a challenge, something Audra, with her competitive instincts, might find impossible to ignore. And soon enough, the fragile calm Claire had chosen could shatter once more. Because if Audra truly goes after Kyle again, Claire's resolve to let things go may vanish overnight. Official spoilers from The Young and the Restless have already hinted that the truth about Holden and Audra's past actions will soon come crashing into the open, and when it does, the consequences promise to be enormous. Ironically, when Holden first proposed the plan to sabotage Kyle and Claire's connection permanently, Audra refused outright. She remembered all too well the last time she tangled with Claire, especially the terrifying moment months earlier when Claire nearly choked her in a burst of rage. Audra insisted she had no interest in provoking that kind of fury again. She even dismissed Kyle entirely, calling him a walking ego, and claiming that just being around him made her skin crawl. In that moment, it genuinely seemed as if Audra had learned from her past mistakes. Yet Holden refused to let the idea die. Instead, he tried a different angle, appealing to Audra's ambition and pride. Now that she had secured an impressive new job, he argued, perhaps she needed a new mission to prove her power. Holden framed the scheme as revenge against Kyle, a way for Audra to reclaim control and emerge victorious. To her credit, Audra resisted at first, pointing out that risking her brand new partnership with Sally Spectra would be reckless and unnecessary. She had too much to lose, and she knew it. But Holden's persistence never wavered, and his words slowly began to plant seeds of temptation. Again and again, Holden insisted that Audra had the ability to pull Kyle back into her orbit whenever she wanted. He painted a vivid picture of Kyle crawling back to her, humiliated and defeated, proving that Audra had always been the true winner. Even more dangerously, Holden suggested that having an Abbott man at her side could make Audra practically untouchable in Genoa City's power circles. The idea was intoxicating: power, influence, and a chance to prove herself unstoppable. Audra admitted she believed she could make Kyle beg for her attention if she tried. Yet she continued to insist she had neither the time nor the desire to bother. Then fate intervened in the most dramatic way possible. As the tension simmered between them, Kyle himself walked into society, locking eyes with Audra in a moment that crackled with unresolved history. The air seemed to shift instantly, heavy with old rivalries and unspoken challenges. Holden seized that moment, leaning closer to Audra and suggesting that perhaps she and Kyle belonged together after all. In Holden's vision, they could both get exactly what they wanted. Audra would win Kyle and Holden would clear the path to Claire. And finally, after resisting for so long, Audra agreed to the dangerous plan. But the moment she accepted, The seeds of disaster were already planted. The truth is that Audra has walked this path before, and the last time she tried manipulating Kyle with Victor's backing, the consequences were devastating. That scheme cost her the love and trust of Nate Hastings, a loss that should have served as a painful lesson. Yet somehow, history is repeating itself. Claire had chosen to walk away from revenge, but if Audra begins pursuing Kyle again, that fragile truce will shatter instantly. Claire's fury will ignite, and with it will come a relentless search for the truth. And the deeper Claire digs, the darker the secrets she may uncover. Rumors still linger about the mysterious death of an art dealer in Los Angeles, an incident quietly connected to Holden and Audra. Now another figure, Sienna Bacall, has arrived in town carrying knowledge that could blow the entire secret wide open. Sienna knows more than she has revealed, including details about the night at the Shadow Room when Holden accidentally killed the man. If Claire begins investigating again, Sienna may decide it's time to share everything she's been holding back. And with Sienna now closely aligned with the powerful Newman family, the information could reach the worst possible audience. In the end, Holden's reckless plan may destroy the very secrets he was trying to protect. Once the truth about him and Audra surfaces, the fallout promises to be massive, exactly as the official spoilers warn. What makes the tragedy even more frustrating is that Audra's life was finally beginning to stabilize. She had secured a promising future, built a strong partnership with Sally, and seemed poised for real success. But Holden knew exactly which emotional buttons to push, and he slowly guided Audra towards self-sabotage. The consequences could be devastating. If Jill Abbott, the powerful financial backer behind Audra's new venture, learns about the manipulative scheme involving Kyle, the professional fallout could be immediate. Sally might be forced to distance herself from Audra despite their friendship, unable to risk the reputation of their business. And if Claire exposes the full truth about the death connected to Holden, the situation could escalate beyond scandal into potential criminal charges. In that case, Sally would have no choice but to fire her closest ally to protect everything they've built. Ironically, Audra once warned that she didn't want Holden back in her life because he was an extreme risk-taker. At the time, that warning seemed almost exaggerated, since the audience had yet to see just how far Holden was willing to go. But the moment is approaching when that reckless side will finally reveal itself in full. And by letting Holden draw close again, by listening to his dangerous ideas and accepting his challenge, Audra may have unknowingly set the stage for the complete destruction of the life she worked so hard to rebuild. In Genoa City, ambition and revenge often walk hand in hand, but this time the price of that ambition may be everything.